Today we're going to look at how to manage your disputes through the resolution center of your PayPal account. The first thing you want to do is log into your PayPal account. Once you've logged in, you'll notice a few items on your home page. PayPal will give you a listing of all your recent transactions. It'll give you the ability to create an invoice, as well as give you the current balance in your PayPal account. For our purposes, we're going to navigate up to the top nav bar and under More, select Resolution Center. On this next page, we'll see a list of all your open disputes in your PayPal account. You'll notice at the top left-hand corner, PayPal will give you the number of open cases you currently have, number of cases that require your attention, and the number of cases that are currently being reviewed by PayPal. So what does this all mean? These disputes listed below represent claims that buyers have opened with you, the seller. Now, the reasoning for claims can vary anywhere from suspicion of fraud to a product or a service that's not as described, or various other reasons. Before we get into how to respond to a case in PayPal, it's important to draw some distinctions between the types of cases that you'll encounter in PayPal. There are three main types of cases that you'll see in PayPal. The first is called a dispute. Now, a dispute is a situation in which a buyer opens up a case with the seller to discuss any grievances or any issues with their transaction. PayPal provides a platform for buyers and sellers to resolve their issues or disputes. The second type of case you'll encounter is what's called a claim. A claim occurs when a buyer or seller decides to escalate the dispute and has chosen PayPal to become an arbiter between the two parties. We'll take a closer look at claims in just a moment. A chargeback is similar to a claim. However, in the case of a chargeback, PayPal's hands are tied as far as what they can do for the seller. In situations of chargebacks, the credit card company will make the final decision, as opposed to claims in which PayPal will make the final decision. Now let's take a closer look at each of these cases. The first case we'll look at is a dispute. You'll notice in the section below that there are some line items that represent different cases. Let's take a closer look at the columns. In the first column, you'll see the name of your buyer. In the second column, you'll see a unique case ID that's assigned to each case. In the third column, you'll be able to see the type of case it is, whether it's a dispute, claim, or chargeback, as well as a basic reason behind the chargeback. In the fourth column, you'll see the amount that's being disputed. In the fifth column, you will see a date that represents when the PayPal case was opened by the buyer or the seller. In the sixth column, you'll see the current status of that PayPal case. You'll notice that some of these cases are in an open status, meaning that they still require your attention. In some of these cases, you'll see that the case is being reviewed by PayPal. This means that PayPal is reviewing any information or documentation that's been provided by either the buyer or seller to reach a resolution on the case. Let's take a look at a dispute in more detail. To view a dispute, you'll simply click on the case ID, which will navigate you to a new page where you can view the case details. As was mentioned earlier, PayPal provides a platform for the buyer and the seller to have a conversation about the transaction in question. In this particular instance, the buyer has made a request or has a question regarding the transaction. As a seller, I have a couple options. I can either message the buyer or I can send an offer. Also, I have the option to escalate this to a claim. So what happens when a dispute is escalated to a claim? Let's take a closer look at claims and how to resolve those. To view a PayPal claim, we'll click on the Case ID hyperlink, just as we did with the dispute. On the following page, you'll notice that things are set up a little bit differently with a dispute. This page will list the transaction ID associated with the transaction, an invoice ID, your buyer's name, email, the amount that's being disputed, the original transaction date, the case number, as well as a reasoning for the dispute. One of the most important things to keep in mind with disputes is that PayPal only provides a limited time with which to respond. In the case of this dispute, we have 7 days in which to respond to this claim. Moving below, we'll see that there are a couple more sections. This first section is a location for any files that have been uploaded by us, the seller, any faxes, or any notes. To resolve the claim, we'll click on the yellow button down at the bottom left-hand corner. On the following page, we have a few options as a seller with which to respond to this claim. We can provide shipping information to confirm delivery of goods. We can refund the payment to the seller, or we can indicate that we've already refunded the buyer for this transaction. Let's click on the Provide Shipping Information option. Now that we've looked at PayPal claims, let's take a closer look at chargebacks. I've clicked into the case number of a chargeback. And as I mentioned before, with PayPal claims, PayPal will resolve matters between the buyer and the seller. However, during a chargeback, the cardholder's bank becomes the deciding factor of whether or not this dispute will resolve in the seller's favor. You'll notice in the chargeback page, again, we have the transaction ID, the invoice ID, the buyer's name, email address, amount being disputed, the original transaction date, the case ID, reason for dispute, as well as a reason code. A reason code is a code that's generated by the buyer's credit card company or bank in partnership with a card network such as Visa or MasterCard. All that you need to pay attention to is the reason for the dispute and how to refute this claim. You'll also notice that there's a chargeback amount now associated with this case. What that means is that the buyer's credit card company has made an adjustment on your merchant account, providing the buyer with a temporary credit while they investigate the matter. Below, you'll see a status details section. This section will give you the information you need in order to address this chargeback effectively. Let's try and resolve this chargeback. I'm going to click on the Resolve Chargeback button at the bottom left-hand corner. On the following page, we'll see some basic details for the chargeback, as well as some options of how to resolve it. Just like a claim, we can provide shipping information. We can also provide evidence other than proof of payment. This is a good option for merchants who cannot provide shipping information, are selling a service, or feel that the buyer is in violation of their terms and conditions. By selecting this option, you can then upload documents to refute the claim. The third and fourth option are to refund the customer or to accept liability for this transaction. Let's take a closer look at providing additional evidence other than proof of shipment. On the following page, PayPal will give you a list of examples of types of evidence that the buyer's credit card company may want to see in order to refute this claim. This information could be proof of shipment, or it could be proof that you've already refunded the buyer, or it could be any agreements or terms and conditions that the buyer agreed upon at the time of sale. In this box, you can provide additional details which you feel will help win your chargeback. In addition, you can also attach documentation in the form of a PDF, JPEG, or PNG file, as well as faxes with additional evidence to refute the claim. Once having submitted the documentation, the new information will appear back on the chargeback details page. If you've uploaded a file, the file will appear here, as well as any faxes or notes that you've provided. Once you've provided this information, the status will change to being reviewed by PayPal. You'll need a way for PayPal to communicate with the buyer's credit card company in order to reach a resolution for your chargeback. I hope this video has helped you understand disputes, claims, and chargebacks a little bit better within PayPal's platform.